but it's really good to be here. Before I jump into what I'm going to talk about today, I want to just give you a little bit of background of, I guess it's really my testimony. I grew up in New Mexico, and my dad was a band director, and then he later became I think he was maybe 35, 36. He surrendered, felt God's tug at his heart, and so he became a minister of music, and later he became a pastor, as a matter of fact. But God was working in his life, and so therefore he's working in my life. I started playing the piano in second grade, and had some really great piano teachers, and so I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. I grew up in the church, and I was one of those PKs, preacher's kids, who actually wanted to be there. And the reason I say that is because I knew other preacher kids who didn't. But I wanted to be there. I was involved in all, especially music stuff, children's choir. I'm really dating myself, but puppets, just even visitation, Tuesday night visitation. That was the one church event I wasn't quite as excited about, but I did it anyway. I went and, shared Jesus with people in the park and all that kind of stuff. But I had a really positive experience growing up in the church. And by age 11, I accepted Christ. I had that, the kids that, and I had one that accepted Christ at a very young age, but the people that do accept Christ at a very early age, sometimes we kind of say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. I really did have a knowledge about what it meant to be a Christian, what it meant to accept Christ into my heart at a very early age. But there's something in me that I knew people were skeptical about that. And so I waited a long time. I waited till 11, and I couldn't wait any longer. And so finally I did that, got baptized. I taught myself how to play the organ. Now, I know organ is not quite, and again, I'm dating myself, but because back in the day, Dr. Kreider knows this, there was piano and organ. Those were the instruments in the church. And I was, and I already knew how to play the piano, but when I saw the organ, which they call the king of the instruments, I mean, I saw all this. I would always put myself wherever I positioned myself in the church where I could watch the organist, because I was just fascinated with all the stuff and the technical aspect. And of course, it was louder than everything else. And so, it was kind of cool, because we would have like youth night where all the students would be, leading the preaching, the singing, the ushering, all that stuff. And I was on the organ. And so all that to say, by the time I was 16, I actually became the organist at the church I was at, which was First Baptist Albuquerque. We were on television, 4th state area. It was a pretty cool, my mom likes to say, that was a great high school job to make some extra money to go to college. So God was good. And I'm, one more thing about that. I'm grateful to music ministers like I had that actually gave me that opportunity. I had to be good enough to do it, but he gave me the opportunity. He also gave me the opportunity to be we had a fantastic student ensemble in the church that he let me lead. And so little things like that along the way. So I'm telling you that because as you go into the churches and you serve, when you see people that have those gifts and have skills and have the potential, let them do stuff, even if it's helping a company in a children's choir, which I did all that. I did all those kinds of things, which really led me to do what I'm doing now. I have a bachelor's of music in church music from Wayland Baptist University. I have a Master of Arts in religious education from this institution right here. It's always great to be back on the Hill. I did most of my seminary while I was a full-time minister, which again, I'm going to kind of give a shout out to the seminaries who are making that available. And I know Southwestern has done that. I did most of my seminary down in the Houston area. I came up I think about 20 hours up here on the hill, but it allowed me to serve full time in a church. And so that was for me, and I know that's not for everybody. Sometimes it's better to just, jump in, get it done, and then go serve. But for me and for a lot of other people, it was really a wonderful, wonderful gift. I'm married to Marcia. This January will be 30 years. And it's been super easy the entire time. Right, Joe? I know. She is I married an attorney, and right now she's a judge for the city of Dallas. And just another God thing, I came up to Texas Baptists, and she said, "What am I going to do?" And God opened up a great door for her. We have 2 grown daughters, Sarah, who went to University of Texas in Austin, and she is the Deputy Chief of Staff and the District Director for Texas House of Representatives District 16. And yes, the House is in session now, so she's going back and forth between Houston and Austin, and we get to hear everything that's about to happen. Like a few days before the governor makes an announcement, we get to hear what it's going to be. So it's kind of cool. She married Michael last July, 7/11/2020. The wedding that was planned for over a year, just this huge ordeal, well, that didn't happen the way, 2 weeks before she pulled the plug, and we had an outdoor wedding in the hill country in 104-degree weather. So but they're married, and they're doing great. Our youngest daughter is Julia. She went to Texas A&M. She is in law school at St. Mary's in San Antonio, and I have to brag on her. She made the dean's list in her first year, so she's super excited. And made law review, and she's going to be clerking for a federal judge this summer. We're very proud of her. She is working her butt off. Let me tell you, she's really working hard. So all that to say, I've lived with some strong-willed, smart women. So I, just let that be whatever it means to you. I've let that kind of craft me and chisel me, and I think it's made me a better man for sure. Prior to coming to Texas Baptist in 2016, I was at First Baptist Conroe as the associate pastor of music and worship for 22 years, and had a great time there. And again, it was super easy. Those 22 years, super easy years of ministry. No, it was great, but you do have to realize, serving at a church, especially for a long time, there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and it's just like a family. You're going to just experience things together, experience life together, and so that just again made me who I am. 2016, I came to Dallas, Texas Baptist. That was an interesting year because my dad is a retired pastor, and they live in Frisco, and so to make the transition from being a music minister in Conroe to coming up to moving to Dallas, I had to move to Dallas to take this job. I had to live with my parents for 7 months in Frisco, and so that was an interesting time. But again, it was actually really a sweet time to get to reconnect with them. All right, so that brings me to what I plan to cover today. There's basically going to be 4 sections to my talk. My work at the BGCT, Baptist General Convention of Texas, also known as Texas Baptists with an S. I'm also going to talk about our events in the Music and Worship Office, because I get people all the time ask me, well, what do you do? What do you, and so hopefully after today, you're gonna know what I do. The second topic is going to be the future of worship ministry. Anybody else want to know what the future of worship ministry holds? I'm going to look into my crystal ball today and tell you about that. Third section is going to be words of wisdom. Okay. Maybe you're just going to say he's a wise guy. I don't know. But words of wisdom. And then the last section, hopefully if we have some time, will be some questions. All right, so let's get to it. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Can y'all see that? All right. So if you go to txb.org, you will go to our convention website. We are the largest state convention in Texas. There are 2 state conventions. I will go ahead and say that. But what's funny is back, if you do any kind of studying of history, back in the 1920s, there were 5. There were 5 Baptist state conventions in the state. So I like to think that we're not as fighting as much as we were back in the 20s. There's only 2 now. So I'm just going to go through this real quick, just so you can. The main thing I want you to go back. I want you to spend some time with this later. If you'll just go to txb.org, and you can see Texas Baptist Life. That's our digital magazine. You can just a lot of this. You can see what the convention does. Some good articles, COVID response, of course. The main thing I want to show y'all, I'm going to actually go back up to the top. We've just recently reorganized, and I lived through the first reorganization since I've been to the convention, so that was a good thing. Share Christ, Show Love is our theme right now for the convention, but the Ministry Centers is our new organization. And so the Center for Church Health, and we've got discipleship, evangelism, music and worship. I'm going to go to that in just a second. We have our own Baptist Way Press, does prints Sunday school literature, church architecture, Center for Ministerial Health. This is where when you graduate, how many of y'all are getting close to graduation? A couple, okay. Okay, well, when you do, this is where you're gonna wanna go. You're gonna wanna come to this and click on Minister Connection. That's where you can put your resume, and as churches are looking for positions, and I work very closely with a lot of pastors and search teams, but Minister Connection is where you would file all that stuff. We have the Center for Cultural Engagement, our Christian Life Commission. I just told you my daughter is in Austin a lot of the time. This is our group that we have, I guess you call them lobbyists that speak on behalf of Baptists, against gambling, against abortion, all that kind of good stuff, hunger offering, but our public policy is what that is. Of course, we've got intercultural ministries. The next center is the Center for Missional Engagement, church starting, replanting, river ministry. River ministry is huge with Texas Baptists. Center for Collegiate Ministry. Every single BSM in the state, Baptist Student Ministry, is under our Texas Baptist umbrella. Of course, cooperative program. Hopefully, all of your churches have already set up to where they give a portion automatically to the cooperative program, which helps fund all this stuff. Helps fund each one of you. Yes, it does. Partners. Of course, we got all the institutions. Almost every Baptist institution in the state is under the Texas Baptist umbrella. Of course, WMU, all the encampments. Anyway, now I'm going to go back up to, I love that with this new organization, Center for Church Health is first, and music and worship right there at the top. Love it. So Texas Baptist Music and Worship partners with ministry leaders to encourage, provide resources, and develop worship leadership. We help equip churches through training events, consultations, and opportunities for fellowship. I like to think we are not event-driven, but we do still do some important events. We had one yesterday, Everlasting Choir Celebration. Of course, right now with COVID, choirs are not really for an event like this, where last year we had over 1,000 people at 3 different locations meeting. We always bring in a great clinician. This year's clinician was Benji Harlan. And of course, because of COVID, we had to rethink how we were doing that. So we actually did it as a webinar. And if you email me, I can actually send that to you. We did that yesterday and had a.
Benji Harlan was the dean here at the SCMW.
That's right.
Before Dr. Day. And he'll be coming back in the fall and doing a choral arrangement.
Yeah, super talented, wonderful arranger, little quirky. He's a funny guy. I mean, I loved visiting with him yesterday on our webinar. But it's a training and networking event for senior adults and senior choirs. And so we had just to give you an example, I already said we usually have in-person about 1,000 people that participate with that. Yesterday for the webinar, which I didn't advertise real heavily, to be honest, but we had 150 people on the webinar yesterday. So, and to offer encouragement, there were a lot of directors on there, but there were a lot of senior adult. Like for First Baptist Arlington, I work with someone whose mom is in their choir, and I think she sings in the y'all still do the oratorio chorus here? Okay. She sang in that. Her last name is Tillman, by the way. Good last name. But they had 54 that had gathered at First Baptist Arlington to watch this. So that was cool. I can tell you real quick about resourcing worship. So when COVID happened, I was already, for the past 3 years or so, way before Zoom was cool, I was meeting with the other Baptist state worship directors once a month. And so when COVID happened, we got together on Zoom and we said, we really need to provide some resources for people because everything is so shut down. Nobody's able to go to conferences. And so we started providing articles, and by the time we got to May, we said, what we really need to do, we need to have a virtual conference, which can encourage people. Nobody's getting to travel, nobody's getting to do anything. And so we put that thing together so quickly. But on August 1st, we had, didn't you spoke at that, didn't you? Did both of y'all? We had over 1,500 registrants for that conference, and it was really done well. We used the Events platform, and it was done very well, professional. We had, nobody was working, so we were able to have people like Keith Getty and Matt Redman and a lot of great people, 75 breakouts. And so what that led me we were doing an event called Children's Worship University with Texas Baptist. We do it every January. It's for training for children's worship, children's choir, leadership. Typically, the in-person event, we have anywhere from 100 to 125 people. It's a 2-day event. Well, we had already decided we were going to do it virtually. Well, after the tremendous success of the Resourcing Worship virtual conference in August, I went to my fellow Baptist State worship directors and said, hey, what would you all think if we partnered together for my upcoming conference coming up in January? So we did, and the reason this is still on here, it happened in January, but we are still making it available all the way through August 30th, because it is all, I mean, especially those of you who want to do stuff with children's worship, children's choir, this is a great resource. And I think it's like $30, and just shows you some of the topics here that were covered. But it was a great thing. And again, we're trying to adapt to the changing world. I mean, we were given COVID, and so, but we're not going to just not still function. We're not going to still train people. And so we were able to still do that. Our Handbell Festival, which has already been rescheduled, it was supposed to happen in February. It's going to be this October. If any of you know anything about handbells, then you would know the name Dave Harris. He's the director of the Raleigh Ringers, and he is our clinician for that. And so that'll be on the campus of Mary Hardin Baylor in October. Just real quick, Singing Men of Texas. We have 6 different chapters. This is all under the umbrella of my office. And it's 6 different chapters over the state that do concerts once a month. Again, not really, that has not really happened this past year, but those are all going to be gearing back up this fall. They tour that. This picture here is actually from Ukraine. And I went on one of the last trips. We went to Ukraine, and the gospel is alive and well in Ukraine. God is really at work over there, and packed concert halls. It's incredible. Singing Women of Texas. There's 8 chapters of that group. They also meet once a month. Have not this past year. We have a scholarship for those that are studying church music in a Baptist university, and that's a new scholarship. We've awarded it to 2 people, and we're about to award it to a 3rd person this year.
Is there information on there?
There is. If you click on that, that will give you yes, that will tell you how you can, for next year, you can apply and download the application. But yeah, it's a $1,000 scholarship. All those things add up and help, don't they? All right, so that is, that's what I wanted to share our website with you. The other thing that I do quite a bit of besides consulting pastors, consulting music search committees, is I do fill in quite a bit. I either fill in a one and done, or right now, and a lot of it is because of COVID, I decided to take on an interim. I am doing an interim right now, so I'm right back into the thick of doing worship ministry every single week, and so that's good. When they hired me at Texas Baptist, they told me, we want you to really be out there. We want you to be out there on the road. We want you to be out there on social media, just, saying, proclaiming the banner for Texas Baptist and Texas Baptist Music and Worship. And so follow me on all of our socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I've got personal, and I've also got Texas Baptist Music and Worship. So I'd love for y'all to look me up and keep up with us. All right, I'm going to go into my next section, which is the future of worship ministry. COVID has really accelerated my prediction about this from years ago. I used to tell my good buddy who also went to Southwestern years ago, we were both serving down in the Houston area at a church, and I told him, I said, you know, I really believe that you and I, our generation, is going to be the last generation of full-time worship ministers. Is that concerning to you? Okay, let me back up and because those of you are like, what am I doing here? I'm studying church. No, let me back up and tell you what I mean by that. A lot of it, what I'm talking about is title. I think that, let me tell you what my first title was as a minister of music. I mean, we study to be a minister of music, but I think we have to think outside the box on what that title is going to be. My first title was Minister of Music and Youth. Terrible title. I don't recommend it, but I will say this. This is what I will say about that. My love and passion was music and worship. The church that hired me, the position was music and youth, and that's what they hired me as. I actually got there and loved it. And why did I love it? Well, because I was able to connect with the families. I was able to connect with the youth and even some of their brothers and sisters, because I was going to the baseball games, or I was going to the football games, or I was going to the pep rally, because you go, that's what you do as a youth minister. You go and you go support the kids. And so it's really all about relationships, which really makes your ministry in the music ministry stronger, because you're connecting with all the other people in their families. And so, you know, and taking the trips and to youth camp and all that kind of stuff is just really, it got you in very tight with the families, which means the church loves you, you love them, and it really goes well together. So my second title was Minister of Music and Activities. Well, again, I wanted to be the minister of music. I wasn't quite sure about the activities part, but I was doing the softball sign up, and I was actually playing softball, which I wasn't very good at. And we had a roller skating rink at the church, and so I was kind of administrating some of that. Again, it's about relationships and connecting with the families. Dr. Kreider, what was your first title?
It was Minister of Music.
Okay, well, you're not helping me on my point there.
I'm sorry.
My first title as a part-time was Minister of Music, but
That was part-time.
there you go, there you go. I did something very similar to what I'm doing with y'all at DBU a couple weeks ago, and Dr. Bowles, who used to be the dean there, his first title was Minister of Music and Youth. His second title was Minister of Music and Media. I basically what I'm getting at is I think there's going to be more of that in the future. I think there's going to be more combination titles. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about areas that you excel in. What else do you like besides music? What are you good at? Administration, youth, children, families, first impressions, missions. You can go on and on and on. But I see that as something that is going to be very important for you to be thinking about in the future, is doing some other things besides music. The worship class that I just mentioned at DBU a couple weeks ago, 9 of the 13 in that class were women. These are church music majors. The class here at Southwestern Baptist, and I'm speaking out right here, Dr. Annual tells me 50% of the class, men, 50% women. That's interesting, isn't it? It's one of my points for the future of worship ministry. And this is happening everywhere. Everywhere I go that I speak to college or a seminary class, there are more and more women. And so it's something that has kind of been brushed under the carpet a little bit for a while as Southern Baptists, but I think we need to kind of think outside the box on that. Mike Harland, who was the former director of worship at Lifeway, we meet the Baptist state directors that I was mentioning to you. We meet every year in in December, and Dr. Kreider was gracious enough to host us a couple years ago here on campus, and we usually meet at Ridgecrest. We've met in Nashville before, but a couple years ago, Mike Harland met with us, and he shared with us, because this topic came up, women in worship ministry. And I will say this, he wrote a very pro-women in worship ministry article that was about to be published by Lifeway Worship. He said it was ready to go to the press, and at the last minute, it was yanked. They decided, no, we're not going to go forth with that. So this is something that has been kind of brewing for a while. It's been, we're just but part of what I'm talking about here, getting back to the title thing, one of the hiccups, or one of the problems that, I hate to use the word problem, challenges with leadership in churches with this topic, with women, has to do with the title, actually. And that's why I don't want us to get so hung up. Don't let that be a hill you die on, is the title. I just spoke with my counterpart in Oklahoma, Randy Lind, just last week. He was telling me a very large church in Oklahoma got a brand new pastor, and the music minister at the time, his title was associate pastor of music. Well, the new pastor came, and he changed his title. You're now minister of music. The children's minister, they changed her title to director of children. Their job didn't change any. She was still the children's minister. The worship pastor was still the worship pastor, but he had a different title. You see where I'm going with on this? I had a friend years ago. This is the worst title I've ever heard for a minister of music. His title was Pastor of Magnification. That would be a deal breaker for me right there. I'd say, oh no, I don't think I want that title. But that was his title, and that lasted a couple years, and then it changed to something else. So what I want you to think about on that, women particularly, there's going to be opportunities for you. The reason I'm saying that is because there's so many of you that are studying, and our churches are going to, these positions are going to start opening up, and you are going to be able to fulfill some of those positions for sure. But don't get caught up on the title thing. If they give you a title of director of music, okay. My piano teacher, when I would get so upset and I didn't play something right, she would say, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's okay. So the same kind of thing. Does that make sense? All right. My next point under the future of worship ministry, intergenerational worship has been a big deal the last 10 years or so. It's going to continue to be a big deal. And with COVID, it's even more of a big deal. So lots of churches, that never thought about doing intergenerational worship, because honestly, the past 20 years or so, we have really chopped up our churches. We're like, okay, and I don't want to throw pastors under the bus, but I'm going to say this has been a pastor thing, okay? Pastors have said, okay, we're going to send the youth over here to the fellowship hall. They're going to do their service. The children, we're going to have the children meeting over here in children's worship. The senior adults, we're going to give you 7:55 a.m. in the chapel. You can meet in there. And then everybody else, we're going to have this awesome modern service at 11 o'clock in the main room. Okay? And we wonder why attendance continues to go like this. You look at any George Barna study, it was the 50s and the 60s and a little bit of the 70s where it was like this. And guess what we were doing back then? Intergenerational worship. Everybody was meeting together. Everybody was worshiping together. Now, intergenerational worship now, there's been a little bit more of an emphasis, and I like it, where we include all ages. We include the children up on the praise team. I love that. I love seeing the kids up on the stage. We include the students reading a scripture. You include grandma and grandpa to, help with the offering. I mean, I just think that's where we've been headed the last several years, and especially with COVID. As COVID has happened, everybody's been like, I guess we're going to all meet together now, and so it's kind of forced a lot of churches to go to that. But I think we're going to come out of this pandemic and people are going to be like, you know what? We like being together. Being together, hello, it's biblical. It's like the body of Christ. Amen. All right. Skipping through some stuff because I'm running out of time. One more thing before I get out of this section. Getting back to minister as part of your title, take that minister part of your title seriously. People are not going to say, when they think back about you and your ministry at the church, they're not going to say, boy, that Joe Kreider, boy, I never will forget back in 2016, that Easter service, when we went in, we sang He's Alive, and it modulated up on that last chorus, and it was just so up. I hate to tell you, as much as you work and you kill yourself over all the details of a service, people are not going to really remember most of that stuff. You know what they're going to remember? I never will forget that Joe Kreider coming and holding my daughter's hand in that hospital bed before she passed away. That's what they're going to remember.
That's right.
So don't forget that. Or I never will forget Susan coming and seeing my son's baseball game when he hit the grand slam. They're going to remember that. They're going to remember those things. So again, when you think about the future and you think about your titles, really hone in on that minister part, because that's where it's at, folks. Real quick, words of wisdom. You probably know a lot of this stuff as far as resources. Planning Center. If you don't know what Planning Center is, look it up. It's a fantastic resource that you're going to want to use. Lifewayworship.com, Praise Charts, worshiphousemedia.com. If you need a video, this church I'm serving in, I wanted to open with a really cool Palm Sunday video, and I found one on there. A perfect thing to open up the service. And then I wrote a little, I didn't like the key it ended in, so I had to write a little transposition for the organ to write something, because we sang something kind of Palm Sunday-ish that day. So all glory, laud, and honor. And then network with local area music ministers. That is huge, y'all. Now, if you go to First Baptist Church Lizard Lick or Second Baptist Church Snakeville, you know what? Get to know the music minister at the Methodist Church. Get to know the music minister at the Assembly of God Church. Have lunch with those folks. That is going to be a tremendous resource for you. If you need a second trombone part to When I Survey the Wondrous Cross, and you can't find it, you need to have some people that you can rely on. Also, same thing, there's other organizations. I mean, we do in Texas Baptist Music and Worship, we do things called worship summits 5 to 6 times a year. It's a networking kind of thing, a day-long thing where we get together and we have lunch and we talk about topics music ministry related. And so Metro Music Conference, these things like that are really great, valuable tools for you, basically about networking. Quotes, you should be doing a short devotional with your choirs and your praise teams every week. If you see a quote that is meaningful to you, write it down, put it in your phone, put it in your iPad, have a resource where you can get this stuff. Social media, figure out your limits. Social media can be a drain on, and who likes to even be on social media during election years anyway, right? But kind of know what your limits are, because it can really steal the time that you need to be spending on other things. Daily quiet time. Read through your Bible every year, but I read Oswald Chambers every single day. I want to tell you real quick, and I really am running out of time. I hate this. Psalm 55:12, cast your burden on the Lord. This is from Oswald Chambers today. There are some burdens placed on us by God which he does not intend to lift off. If we set out to serve God and do his work, but get out of touch with him, the sense of responsibility we feel will be overwhelming and defeating. But if we only roll back on God the burdens he has placed on us, he will take away that immense feeling of responsibility, placing it with an awareness and understanding of him and his presence. Proverbs 11:25, the generous will prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. Think about that as you minister to people. Send that encouraging text to somebody. It will not only refresh them, it will refresh you as well. Your biggest job as a worship pastor is to be an encourager. First of all, it'll get your eyes and attention off of you, and people do need encouragement. Anybody else in here need encouragement? I know I do. Each of you has a powerful circle of influence that no one else does. No one else has the circle of influence that you do. So that's why you need to minister. Okay, I think I'm out of time, but because we are right up at 50, right? Thank y'all. If you do have questions, I would love for you to email me, and I would love to have the correspondence with you. My email is tom.tillman@txb.org, and I forgot to put my cards over here, but if my card also has my cell phone on it, so I'm going to put my card over here. And it has my email, it has my cell phone, and I would love to to make the connection with y'all. But thank y'all for listening, and I appreciate the invitation to be here on campus.